You know, the quest to find out one's past really is a global sensation. More than 2 million people have accounts with Provo-based Ancestry.com.
Yeah, with so many people learning about their family trees, Good for Utah's Nadia wanted to join in. Tonight, she's digging deeper into her own roots.
Part one of our series with Ancestry.com, we explain how you can get started. And I sit down with the matriarch of the maternal side of my family to discuss her journey into our family tree that started many years ago.
It's almost universal, this desire to know who we are and where we came from.
So how do you get started? Simple. Talk to your family and then head online to Ancestry.com and start plugging in information on your family tree.
What Ancestry does is goes and takes those names and dates and relationships that you've put in that tree, and behind the scenes will look for clues or different document hints to make getting started and finding that first document that much easier.
This is the document digitation room inside Ancestry.com's corporate headquarters in Provo. The global site enters 2 million of these documents each day. Documents like birth certificates, military records, and yearbooks.
There are so many people that are not just looking for stories or family culture, but that are seeking truth.
One of the easiest documents to find is a census, a snapshot from the past to help rattle your grandparents' memories.
Show it to them and say, hey, this is a record of you as a child, and you had these siblings living with you, and do you remember who your neighbors were? Did you know that your dad was working as an insurance salesman at the time? Start throwing out little pieces of information that'll jog their memory, and you'll get stuff that you have never heard before.
I started my own journey with step one, talking to my grandmother, Carolyn Lori Heiser. She's in Illinois, so I interviewed my granny on Skype.
Well, as a child, I've always been interested in their family history.
My grandmother is one of 6 siblings born to Thomas Nichols Jr. and Lucille Hunt.
Whenever they were talking about, their parents, I was right there listening and picking up information. So it was always something I wanted to know more about.
And in the 90s, she logged on to Ancestry.com to find out more. My great-great-grandfather, Thomas Nichols Sr., and his wife, Emma Murphy, lived in Mississippi in the early 1900s.
They said because he had married this woman, this German woman, that was either mulatto or a full white. And whenever they saw them together, then there was a lot of, concerns about it.
Relatives say they fled their home because of death threats. Family historian Michelle Erkenbach is hot on the fading trail.
There are real gaps in record creation, especially for groups like African Americans or for descendants of the Holocaust, where records weren't created or were destroyed.
While it can be difficult, more documents are rolling into their archives each day and piecing together the puzzles of the past. And maybe due diligence might answer some of the questions lingering for generations.
I really want to know where exactly my father came from, my grandfather, and where my grandmother came from.
And the next part in this series, I sit down with a family historian to learn more about my great-great-grandfather who fled Mississippi after a controversial marriage and our Native American heritage. And in the last part of this series, my DNA makeup revealed for the first time. Reporting from the Satellite Center, Nadia Crow, Good for Utah.
You know, the universal quest to know our ancestors and figure out where we came from provides a lot of business to Ancestry.com. And ABC4 Utah's Nadia Crow, well, she is on a quest for that family information.
That's right. In the first of a 3-part series, we show you how to get started. Now, months after that research began, one family historian is actually answering Nadia's questions about her roots.
In the case of your family, we were able to get all of those lines back 8 generations and get a glimpse into that 9th generation.
The oldest relative on my tree, Esquire Bauckham. Born in 1820 in North Carolina, he was likely a freed slave. Esquire's parents were born sometime between 1780 and 1800.
Which could put them right back during the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 in North Carolina, where those conflicts were concentrated. Your family has been here and are really like the builders of this nation.
And that realization was enough to bring me to tears.
It's just, you just hear these old stories and you see the census, and then you get an idea of maybe what their life was like, and then it just kind of brings me back to some painful memories of like being in elementary school and having someone say, go back to Africa.
But according to this agriculture schedule of 1880, my fourth great-grandfather, Esquire Bonkham, grew on this American land. Cotton, corn, eggs, cows, and pigs on 20 acres of land. But one family line still remains a bit of a mystery.
Oscar's the oldest, he's 12, the next child is 7.
You can see John Oscar Murphy, or my third great-grandfather, in the 1870 census. He's the only person in his family listed as M or mulatto, while everyone else was B or black.
Oscar, 12 years ago, that would have put him during slavery.
Or right at the Civil War.
Right during the Civil War in Louisiana, so that could have been his slave master is his father.
Absolutely.
Right.
Fast forward 20 years later, Oscar married and had children. 2 sets of children.
And he's living down the street from all these children who we believe are his. But it doesn't appear that Oscar Murphy and Mariah Luckett ever married.
A mulatto Mariah and a mulatto Oscar had 4 kids, including Emma Murphy, my second great-grandmother. Emma Murphy married Thomas Nichols Sr., and my grandmother, Carolyn Lowry Heiser, remembers this story about them.
They said because he had married this woman, this German woman, that was either mulatto or full white, and whenever they saw them together, then there was a lot of, concerns about it.
A difficult time, an important piece of my family tree.
We are hitting kind of the peak of that Jim Crow era. And so it's possible that while, there might have been other reasons for these other families to have left, that the hostility in that area might have been increasing over time to the point that might have been a reason why they left.
There's pride, but there's also a little bit of sadness because of what they must have endured during that time.
And still many questions remain. What was life like for a very fair-skinned Emma Murphy from a complex family background? What plantation did John Oscar call home? And why does the trail run dry? Nadia Crow, Good for Utah.
Very interesting. Well, in Nadia's next story with Ancestry.com, we'll break down her DNA. A look at Nadia's ancestors tomorrow on ABC4 Utah News at 10.
It is something that really is uniquely you, and it helps tell the story what you're made of. Through our partnership with Ancestry.com, Good for Utah's Nadia Crow has been searching her roots. In the last of her 3-part series, she learns the results of her DNA test.
It only took a few minutes to do the test, spit in a tube, and send off my DNA to the Ancestry.com lab.
We get the cells inside your cheek, and then we can take it to the lab and we can process it.
And now I get to find out who I am. Family historian Michelle Erkenbrecht traced my family tree back to the late 1700s, but we couldn't figure out everything.
This hole might be a clue in your family tree.
A hole that science might be able to answer.
But we compare your data to those different populations, and then we can give you your estimate.
And here it is, on my Ancestry.com profile, the results of my DNA. I'm 92% African. No surprise there, but my family hasn't been able to trace our roots through slavery and to Africa.
You're 27% Cameroon, Congo.
Wow.
You're 22% Ivory Coast, Ghana. 17% Nigeria, 14% Mali, and then 6% Benin and Togo.
It's an eye-opening experience. I'm more than a quarter Cameroonian Congolese, the same area that's been in turmoil for decades.
You have Native American, and you have Asian. You're 4% European, you have 1% Ireland, and then you have West Europe, Italy, Greece, and Europe West.
The Irish blood resonates with me, and that might be why my second great-grandmother has an Irish surname, Murphy. On this 1880 census, Emma Murphy was listed as mulatto, but we didn't know why.
You get these results, you're like, great, but now you can, go in and you can click on each region, read more about it.
Each region has its own history and talks about patterns of population migration, or in the case of my family's heritage, slavery. And more than just my DNA, Ancestry.com finds others in its database who have a similar DNA makeup as you.
So you out of the gate have a second cousin.
Wow.
And what about my possible fourth cousin? You see this leaf? It's called a hint.
So Enoch Hunt and Ruth Bauckham, that's our link.
And now I can go online, send messages to all of these people and find out our connections and find out if they can add to my growing family tree. Nadia Crow, Good for Utah.
Such an interesting thing. You know, the DNA tests through Ancestry.com are $99. It takes just about 4 to 6 weeks to get your results back. We posted details on how to get your test done on our website at goodforutah.com.